Midlands Metalheads Radio live at Hard Rock Hill 12. Pleased to have the guys from Blitzkrieg with me. What's you guys?
Yeah.
Looks really interesting, fair play. Originally from Leicester.
I'm
detecting some different accents throughout the band.
Yeah, we were originally formed in Leicester, and when the band split up, we were only together from 1980 to 1981, and the reason why we split up was because we were offered a record deal with Carrera Records, and the guitarist Jim didn't want to do it. So he said, "No, don't want to do it. I don't want to be into that, doing the record thing." So he left, and I didn't want to carry on without him. So I moved back up to the northeast of England, and then in 1985 I reformed the band, and then we've just gone from there. The accents. I mean, Hugh was originally from here, from Wales.
Yeah.
Well, I was born here.
Born here, yeah.
No, I wasn't born here. No, I was actually born in Maidenhead, or Reading, that area. But my mum's side of the family are Welsh, and my dad's side of the family are all from Waltham Flats in London. So
right cross section.
But northeast of England now, basically.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say Geordies, because we're not all Geordies. No.
Ken's from under a bridge somewhere.
Yeah.
So you had the chance. You didn't take up the record offer.
We didn't. Sometimes people say to me, "Well, do you never think about what might have happened if you had?"
Because they
the deal
Saxon,
was,
didn't they?
Yes, they had Saxon, and that was actually the deal.
Yeah.
We would get an album and single deal, and we would go out on tour with Saxon. That was the deal, and we turned it down. And I do often think about what would have happened if we'd taken it and gone with it, but you can't really live on that. You've got to, everything happens for a reason. Decisions are made, and you've got to live by those decisions. And I'm quite happy to do that. We've had a good ride, and I think it would have been totally different had we taken that step. So who knows?
Yeah. So you got back together, or you reformed in 1985.
Yeah.
Some of the guys here do not look old enough to have been in the band
No,
when you reformed,
this is.
So
people come and go. I mean, I'm the only original member left.
Yeah.
And people have come and gone for whatever reason. And I think, I kind of look at it from the point of view that I'm happy for somebody to be in the band as long as they want to be. As soon as they reach the point where they're saying to me, "Look, I'm not really into this anymore," then that is the time for them to leave. So you get a replacement and so on. So, yeah. The youngest member of the band is Matt.
But he's the newest.
But he is the newest, So
yeah.
it's what we call in the band. It's what we call the Blitzkrieg curse.
Right.
Because really, we've never ever managed to do two albums with the same lineup. So we've released a new album, and hopefully nobody's going to leave this time, and we'll break the curse of Blitzkrieg, and then we'll all be
listen
happy.
to this. Yeah. You mentioned the latest album, which is a really good listen. Fair play.
Thank you very much.
With all the other artists from that time putting up new stuff like Rock Goddess, Praying Mantis, etc. Do you find yourself going back to your previous albums and listening to what you did then and then writing from there, or do you just go in fresh?
I mean, again, it's ideas? Like what we were saying before. I mean, I strongly believe that what has kept Blitzkrieg alive over the years with all the different lineup changes is obviously with that you'll get different influences, you'll get different playing styles, something like that.
Yeah.
So in a way, to answer your question about whether we listen to the previous albums, no, we just write how we are together as a band, and obviously with each lineup that'll be different.
Yeah.
But it's new flavours. So it's different every time. So
I think the only time I've listened to a previous album deliberately to try and recapture that feel was when Satan got back together, and we did the comeback album. The original album was Caught in the Act from 1983, and we all listened to Caught in the Act constantly, just because what we wanted to do was write a new album that followed on. What would have been the album that came out in 1984, 85?
Yeah.
And that's the only time I've ever done that. You know, but in Blitzkrieg we don't do that, do we?
I think I've cheated a little bit on that because, as you probably know, I came to Blitzkrieg via Avenger, and of course Avenger were the band that Brian kind of formed after Blitzkrieg, and with Mick Moore, who was the original bass player for, well, not original, but he was the main bass player for
Blitzkrieg. Yeah.
So when I was in Avenger, I learned very much how Mick Moore played and his styles. So I very much sort of kind like always seem to follow it into his old shoes. I always get Mick Moore's old boots to step into, and so I got very used to how Mick Moore played the bass. And I think, to be fair, we've got a lot of very similar influences, from like Thin Lizzy and UFO and stuff like that.
With the new album.
And so when you probably know there's a new single out which is called Old Pals Breaking Loose, and that was a thing I came up with in the bass to start with. And one of the things was I wanted to write a song that was actually very much kind of like old Blitzkrieg and what Mick Moore would have come up with.
It's a very rhythm section based song, isn't it?
Yes, we probably don't look back, but actually I did. I did look back and sort of say...
We don't as a band, but I mean, if individual people want to look back,
I mean,
that's fine.
I really like Mick Moore's playing style.
Mick was and still is a great bass
player. The only time we kind of really looked back was when we did the reissue. Time of Changes.
We reissued Time of Changes, which is which was a re-recording of the original first album, and so obviously we would have to look back at that to learn how to play it. But I mean, the reason why we did that was because I was appalled at the amount of money that was being paid for copies of this album. People wanted it and they couldn't get it, and they had to pay ridiculous amounts of money to get a copy of it. And I thought, right, the only way to put a stop to this is to reissue the album. We couldn't reissue the original album, so we decided as a band the next best thing would be to re-record it, which is what we did.
And that was a challenge in itself.
It was a bit of a challenge, because what we did was we tried to stay as true to the original as possible, but as Matt said, everybody, once they'd learnt their part,
have their own sort of
put their own sort of slant on it. And we did that, and released it, and it kind of made it available for everybody again, and which was, I think, that's kind of my way of saying thanks for being around.
Well,
it's created a chain reaction as well, because that album did so well. What the hell are they called? High Roller Records actually went back and reissued every album.
Every back catalog, all the back catalogue.
And it's so nice to actually, I mean, some of them were never released on vinyl, like Holy Trinity and Mists of Avalon. They were never
they were never available on vinyl in the first place. But
now they're all out, and people are loving it. So.
Well, that's it, vinyl's come back in as well. So,
and as well, when something will restart that sort of band momentum, which is what we're trying to keep up with the new album, it's obviously we've been signed to a great new label last year, Mighty Music, and it's all just trying to keep the momentum going, to just keep this good wave that we're riding at the moment,
You mentioned Thin Lizzy earlier here about influences. Were there any other bands that influenced your style of bass playing?
Right, everyone go to sleep now.
I'm going to go to sleep while
I'll change the batteries on.
Make a cup of tea.
Well, here we go. Black Sabbath, Geezer Butler's my absolute number one.
Yeah.
I love Geezer Butler. I mean, Black Sabbath are my absolute favourite band of all time. There's obvious ones like Steve Harris and stuff like that, but...
You look nothing like
No, you don't. You look nothing like him.
It wasn't about what you look like,
you
Spaz.
You don't look like a shit Bob Bland either.
No, it's funny because obviously in the theme what we're talking about, in Midlands, I'm on that like the Facebook thing, Midlands Metal Mayhem or something like that. And I love that because a lot of the bands, Judas Priest, the influence that Midlands, and Birmingham had in creating heavy metal. This is this is a place that started it for everyone, and so I love going on that. And so many bands I didn't even know came from the Midlands, like Rich Finder General and stuff like that, and read all that stuff and I think, oh God, Andy Sneap and all these bands, Sabat and stuff like that. It's incredible what Birmingham kind of produced. It's basically how on earth did they create just about the whole genre and all the major bands? It's fabulous.
The real question is what's your take on the news of the Spice Girls getting back together?
Well,
That took you by surprise.
Do you know,
You pinched one of my questions, Amy.
Well, we all play that game, don't they? With bands like, well, put them in order if you had to. And like Spice Girls is a really tricky one when you're sitting there going, if you had to, which one would be first and which one would be last?
what are we talking about here? Which one would be first?
Well, you push off a cliff.
Well,
That'd be easier.
I'd push all of them off the cliff except for Jerry. I would take her home. I swear I could.
Oh, she's a Tory, man. You wouldn't take her home. She's a Tory,
What's
man.
politics got to do with it? I'm not going to ask her what her politics is.
You're such a mixed bag today.
Can you imagine
How about
that?
your influences, Brian?
My influences, okay, well, back in the 60s, I saw a band called the Beatles, and they influenced me. Who were they?
Exactly.
You know, and I saw them and I thought, that is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to do. And then I was influenced for the kind of lyrics that I write by a chap called Mark Bolan. In his early days, he wrote some very incredible lyrics.
Oh, Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yes,
yeah.
in Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah.
In T-Rex, I think he was clever, but some of the lyrics are kind of a bit odd, and they don't sort of reach you quite the way that Tyrannosaurus Rex did.
Yeah.
I think really with Metal Guru and Telegram Sam, you have to know what was going through his head at the time when he wrote those, because they are about things, but it's kind of only privy to the people that were around him at the time.
Cut the lyrics up into little pieces and just throw them in the air. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The style of my vocals was originally influenced by Ian Gillan, and then topped up by Rob Halford. Sort of like, that's how I want to be able to sing.
Yeah.
And finally, the show that I put on, influenced by Alice Cooper, because I think Alice is the master of stage show.
Yeah.
You go to his concerts and it's just so entertaining.
It's a show.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
It's not just the music; it's the whole visual thing.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible.
Yeah.
So, with Cooper as well, the band and everything is good. It's
Yes, they are.
It's not like Motley Crue. When you,
And do you know something?
And they've continued to be as well.
Alice Cooper's music, you might think, that's simple, but really it's not. It's anything but. I mean, the three of us are actually in a stage show called Alice Cooper's Nightmare, and I get to play Alice.
Yeah.
But when we started playing the songs and learning them, we realised just how hard some of these songs are.
It's clever. It's
extremely clever, you know. So, yeah, those are my influences.
Yeah. Armageddon Music, is that still...
Armageddon Music, that was the label that was put together by Vakken. And Blitzkrieg did one album on that label, and it kind of folded after that. I actually don't know who else was on the label at the time.
I can't remember that.
Yeah, but we were kind of out of our comfort zone a little, in that we recorded the album for the first time in Germany rather than England. So we had to fly over to Germany and basically live there for a while we recorded the album. We had Biff from Saxon come in. He did a bit of producing and so on, and we had a lot of fun. Good laugh. But just Biff's a good friend.
Yeah.
You know. Well, whole Saxon, they're good friends. You know.
Sorry, you going to say anything else? Sorry.
I mean, really, that was the out of the comfort zone. But you know, the album came out. And it was doing pretty well. Then the record label folded, and it's the one Blitzkrieg album that you cannot get hold of a copy of.
Yeah.
We can't find out who actually owns the rights to the album anymore, so we can't get it reissued. And I don't want to go down the road of re-recording it. We've already done that once, and it's with time it changes. You can't keep going re-recording your albums all of the time. It's great fun, but it's not that productive in that you spend a lot of time learning songs that are alien to you. You know, because some of these guys weren't even in the band. Exactly. Ken was, you know, because Ken, apart from me, Ken's the longest standing member. You know, so I think we really need to find out who actually owns that now, so that we can get it reissued. But other than that,
it was well produced as well. So I mean, it wasn't like some of the earlier stuff, you know, that was your neat stuff, which was obviously recorded, you know, with the stuff at the time.
Exactly.
But that was a well produced album, you know. So
I think it was too well produced.
Yeah, possibly. You know, it was because it was like everything was done. The slightest mistake, redo it, till everything was absolutely
very,
perfect.
very fabricated, wasn't it? It was
I mean,
manufactured rather than...
To be honest, I, as long as it's not a glaring mistake, I mean, it's obviously if something goes massively out of key or out of time or something, you've got to redo it. Yeah. But if there's just a little fault, I think that adds to the album. To be honest, I think that's the way.
Character, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a character. I mean, after all, at the end of the day, if you're playing live and you make a mistake, you can't go back and change it.
You can't change it.
When we recorded A Time of Changes, we didn't use any click track.
Literally.
We did it.
I remember this.
We wanted to record it the old way, so we didn't do it with a click track. We did it
at certain points in actually the song Time of Changes, obviously because there's quite a lot of tempo changes for me. It's some of the song was done by a click and then some wasn't, which was part of the challenge because it was. We actually tried playing along at first, and I still remember I was sat there in the studio, and I'm thinking it doesn't piece together, and which was the big challenge of it because, and again I think that on what you were saying before, that what gives the album its character because it's a tribute, but it's its own thing. Yeah,
it is,
which is a very, very rare thing to get.
Tour next year, Rain of Fire.
Well, actually, that's in a couple of weeks.
In a couple of weeks, we're off on tour in Europe. Yeah. We're trying to negotiate. Our agent is negotiating deals with the States to get out there next year if we can. If not, we need to fit it in. Matt is he's a teacher, so he needs to he can't just take time off when he wants to. So we're fitting things around and seeing how we can go. We've got a window of a couple of weeks, but we'll see if that comes off. If not, then we'll do something else. But I think we're aiming to sort of get to America at some point.
It's nice to complete America because, as well, it's always November that we end up doing these big jauns because the year 2015 we did South America, then 2016 we did Japan, then 2017 we're recording the album around then this year we're going to Europe. It's always kind of November time.
We're always doing something though, because if we're not actually, if we're not out on tour, then we'll be doing the odd gig on a weekend or whatever, and the rest of the time we're writing. So, we're always doing something.
Always busy. Yeah.
I think it's good that we're getting a chance to go out on tour and promote this album. Because I don't know about the rest of the lads, but I think it's a really strong album we've recorded, and obviously with the mix, what the record company put in to get Jakob Hansen to mix it. Yeah, that's made a big difference to the sound, for me.
Good to hear it.
It's well produced, but not overproduced, and I think that's the secret that he brings to the table. Really, Jakob Hansen, he did a fantastic job. The record company said to us, if you could choose who was going to produce the next album, who would it be? And we said Jakob Hansen straight away.
It was to do because
and off he went and he got it.
Yeah.
So Pandemonium. He produced that album by the Pretty Maids, and we were kind of blown away with that. We thought, this is...
It's a drum sound on Pandemonium.
Yeah.
Because
it really is.
The drums sound huge.
We use that before our intro tape.
We do. I mean, that's what we do. We play a track from the Pandemonium album just before our intro tape starts. So that if you're going getting a drink or you're at the loo, you hear that song, the next thing up is the intro tape, so you've got to get back.
Alarm clock.
It is our alarm clock, but it's great.
Unfortunately, every time you hear it now, it sort of triggers you and you're ready to play.
Yeah.
Guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with 2019. Good luck with the tour. And
thank you.
Looking forward to hearing
Much appreciated
as well.
Thank you.
Brian, thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
I just seem to sit all the way back over there. Cheers, anyway. Midlands Radio live at Hard Rock Hell 12 with
Blitzkrieg.